All right, everybody. Welcome to the debut episode of the Heat Check Podcast, Heat Check Podcast number 1. My name is Andrew White, here with my co-host Matt Truty. I think we're going to talk about some basketball today.
And talk about some NBA free agency.
Dude, it's been a crazy free agency. Not as crazy as last year, I don't think, just because of the crazy numbers that everybody was throwing at, like, joking.
NBA free agency, always a crazy time period. Now it's really not even over. There's still some moves to be made for some organizations, so we haven't seen everything yet, but in our eyes, we both have winners and losers. Right? You have some?
Yeah, I got a couple. I got a couple. Let's see. So you want to just get right into it?
You want to get into your winners?
Get into my winners. All right, number 3
All
on
right.
my winners.
So we got 3 winners and 3 losers, and you're gonna start out with your winners.
All right, number 3 on my winners list. None other.
Oh, you got them. You got them numbered. You got them in a particular order.
I got them in an order. Number 3 on my list. Your reigning 2017 NBA champs, the Golden State Warriors.
Ooh, it's a good one.
That's a good one. All right, here's how I see it. This is a team that won 73 games in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
They came back. They added Kevin Durant. They became by far the best team in the league, hands down. 16-1 in the playoffs. Never been done before. Highest win percentage.
I think they're 67-15 in the regular season.
Yeah, 67 wins in the regular season, 16 in the postseason. So just ridiculous. And now they had to pay KD, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
he didn't take the max, so he took less than people expected him to. But obviously he wanted to make room for re-signing some players, some key pieces.
And that's the thing, right? This whole season, I was thinking that we were gonna let Iguodala walk. Maybe
Andrew is a big time Warriors fan.
Big time Warriors fan. I thought that we were gonna let Iguodala walk. I thought that he was gonna go chase one more big payday. Because he's getting old. How old is he now? He's in his 30s.
He's
right?
in 33.
33, yeah.
He's getting up there.
Yeah, so I thought he was going to chase a payday. I thought he would have been a good fit in Houston.
San Antonio, maybe, but it seemed like he was just putting his name out there for San Antonio just because he wanted to strike up some type of, animosity for Golden State to re-sign him, I guess.
Yeah, he was meeting with everybody, getting all those free meals. But KD took less than the max.
Yep.
So that let us keep Iguodala, who is probably the best bench player in the league. David West.
One of the best six men. Yeah, one of the best 6 men. Yeah.
David West, we got to keep him. It's his final year. He gives us some toughness off the bench. Do you remember?
Not a bad player.
He's not bad. I love his.
David West has some good game. Plays pretty physical inside. That's some type of player that Golden State tends to not have. Inside the post.
I like him a lot because he
He's the mid range a couple times a game.
Yeah, great mid range, and he gives us kind of an edge on the boards, like a little fire on the boards, which is where we traditionally struggle. He's a guy that isn't afraid to bang down low against someone like Tristan Thompson or Kevin Love, and I think he was a big part of, because when you think about it, really, like that rebounding advantage is one of the main things that Cleveland does better than Golden State. They're just a better rebounding team, and having a guy like David West coming off the bench really kind of helps with that. Just grabbing boards, playing good defense, kind of like an enforcer. When he tried to fight Thompson and he got in Kyrie Irving's face.
Yeah, and also kiss Tristan at the same time.
At the same time, yeah. So he just kind of brings an edge off the bench. So we re-signed some guys. And really, that's all we could hope for.
Re-signing Sean Livingston as well.
Sean Livingston as well, yes. And I think Livingston could start on about half the teams in the league, honestly.
A lot of people think that the Golden State bench could compete in the East for a playoff spot, so they got a big argument there.
The East is trash. No, but yeah. What I did not expect was them to get better. And I think they got better. I really think they did. They let Ian Clark walk.
Well, you also have to take they're going to let Ian walk. Well, you also have to look at Cass B. They signed Cass B to sign Nick Young.
Right. Nick Young, I think he's a lot like JaVale McGee, honestly. He comes in, he's got this reputation, kind of a goofball, comes in with this swagger, you know, they, you know, he acts like he's really, really good when in reality he doesn't always play that way. But I think that he showed last year, at least in the games when he was healthy, that if you put him in a system like Luke Walton runs, which is a lot similar to what Golden State runs, that he can be a productive 3 and D guy. He probably played the best defense of his career last year. You know, he's long. I think he's 6'6", 6'7". So that's another perimeter defender for us to have, which is good. And I want to say, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I want to say he shot 41% last year on catch and shoot threes.
I think he shot at least 40%. I don't know about catch and shoot, but in terms of 3-point percentage, I think he had one of his better years.
Right, and so with Livingston and Iguodala being the primary ball handlers in the second unit, and having Young, you know, come off screens, be a spot up threat in the corners and at the wings, I think he can really thrive. You know.
Yeah, shot 40% from 3-point land last year.
Yeah, so he's one of those guys. Or Iguodala is one of those guys. Excuse me. That just kind of him being on the floor makes everybody play better, I think. And so I think he can help impact Nick Young's defense. I think he can impact Nick Young's offense and really help him kind of turn a corner, like I said, just like JaVale McGee did this year with the Warriors. I think it's a great ad, especially for the contract they got him on. And what do you even say about Caspi? I don't know if you remember. Do you remember a game? I think
honestly, I think Caspi pretty solid. He had I remember last year it was probably one of the things that they probably took into account when they were looking into Caspi is he had a big 3-point shooting game against Golden
Curry,
State last
right?
year against Curry. He had a big big 3-point shootout, and I think he has really good height. I mean, I think he's like 6'8" almost. I mean, he's a pretty big dude, so he has a little bit of versatility. Can pass the ball, rebound, score. Obviously, he can shoot from three. So, I mean, he's a guy that they like, and to be able to sign him, I'm pretty sure they're probably pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's what caught my eye. See, I didn't even know who he was up until that game against the Warriors when him and Curry they combined for 15 threes between the two of them. And it's not often that you get a guy that can go head to head in the shootout with Curry like that and come out at least even. Yeah. You know, he's one of those guys. I think if I were to rank him right now, or not rank them, but just list them off the top of my head, guys who can pull from 30, 35 feet. Curry, obviously. Lillard. Durant can pull from 35. Lillard can pull from 35.
Isaiah probably. I mean, Isaiah's kind of. I don't know if he can. Maybe not. He's just a good 3-point shooter.
He's a good 3-point shooter. I don't know if he can pull from 35.
Yeah, he might not be able to. Clay, obviously. I think
Clay can pull from anywhere. And I think you got to put Caspi up there. I mean, it's what he does. The guy, he's just.
I don't know if I put him like in that group collectively. I haven't seen him play extensively enough, but he probably can. He could probably jack up a couple.
He's one of those guys that I think that you can be comfortable with him pulling from that deep. Not all the time, but every once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it really amazes me that they somehow managed to go 16-1 in the playoffs and get better. Warriors GM, that's a great job, and I think a lot of it has to do with the culture that they're starting to build up in there. You know, Durant taking the pay cut. Mm-hmm. I think that either one of Draymond or Clay is going to take a pay cut to keep this team together next year or in 2 years. 2 years.
Yep.
But it just amazes me. I think they're definite winners, especially in comparison to Cleveland, who fired their GM. Fired their GM, has yet to hire another one. Fired their GM a few days before the draft. Has yet to hire another one. They made some
small signings with Jeff Green and Osman from Turkey recently. So just not big signings at all.
Yeah, the corpse of Jose Calderon. I mean, can you even play Jose Calderon against the?
I don't even know. Did he even sign with the Cavaliers?
Yeah, he signed. Yeah, he signed with the Cavs, but I don't know.
So they made 3 small signings right there, but that's interesting. Okay, so that's your winner number 1, right?
Yeah, Warriors, my winner number 1.
All right, so that's your first winner. For me, I'm going to go with something that I think has actually been on the radar for, probably a decent amount of people. Although last year, in terms of just their pure overall, not very good whatsoever. I'm going to go with the Sacramento Kings as a winner in free agency.
I really like that. I was thinking about that.
And with the moves they made, to be honest with you, obviously a lot of it, you have to dynamic point guard. They get Harry Giles, who's more of a developmental player. He'll probably come into his own a little bit. Justin Jackson, Frank Mason. So they get some guys, obviously. That's the draft. But then in free agency, when they're lacking so much, experience and veteran players, they go out there. They sign Vince Carter from Memphis. They sign Zach Randolph from Memphis. Both those guys, pretty established veteran players for sure. I mean, Vince Carter's trying to hit 20 plus years in the league. Zebo has been a consistently excellent power forward. So he joins them. And to be honest with you, they're looking like a much better team. They also get George Hill. So, I mean, I think that they look much better. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Sacramento?
Yeah, I was really impressed with Sacramento. They have gotten a lot of hate, deservedly so, for the past for a long time now, really since the Chris Webber days. And, at the trade deadline, when they sent Boogie away, they kind of got crucified for it. People called it a typical Kings move, right? But the way I look at it, I think Boogie was going to walk. Regardless, I think he was going to go somewhere where he could win, which is fine. And so they did what they could to get pieces back for him. And they got Buddy Hield. I really like Buddy Hield. I was really high on him coming out of college. He's a great scorer. I think he has the ability to develop his defensive game. He's not exactly a perimeter stopper right now, but I think he can be at least above average on that end, at least in terms of playing the passing lanes and, just not letting people blow by him on defense, really kind of holding his own out there. And he can just
I agree.
flat out score the basketball. But what they did this offseason, it really impressed me because they showed that I think they showed that they're looking to be more stable as an organization. They're looking for continuity, consistency. They want to build a culture out there, I think. David Fizdale, right, the coach. No, I'm sorry, not David Fizdale. Dave Yorger, the former coach.
Dave Yeager.
Yeah, Yeager. Former coach from Memphis, right? So he brings in some of his old veterans. Vince Carter, like I said, still getting it done at 40 years old. Zach Randolph, low post stud. That can really be a help to their young guys like Scal Labissiere, Willie Cauley-Stein, some guys like that. It's really going to help having a veteran big man. And then, what can you go wrong having a guy like Vince Carter in your team? I mean, he's been in the league so long. He really, and it's not like, he's not really playing a James Jones type of role as far as veterans go, where he plays like 3 minutes here and there in a blowout. Vince can still give you 15, 20 minutes a game off the bench and be productive and be a plus player while he's at it. And I think, so he's there. He can help kind of talk to the rookies, talk to the young guys.
Yeah, and when you look at the roster that they have, the Sacramento Kings, last year, you look at their top points, the top guys that ended up, being basically the guys that went out there and scored the most points. 3 of the top 4 guys are actually gone. You have DeMarcus Cousins, who obviously, they traded away to New Orleans. Rudy Gay, now with the San Antonio Spurs. Darren Collison with the Pacers. So, Tyreek Evans went to Memphis. Ty Lawson's probably not going to be a factor anymore. Or at least I feel like he shouldn't be. They drafted De'Aaron Fox as a top 10 pick. They got George Hill. George Hill might start. So
and
their roster. And what were you saying?
They added Frank Mason too out of Kansas too.
Yeah, they add Frank Mason. So I mean, honestly, they are looking really exciting, and that's why I picked them as a winner in free agency. But I mean, it'll take some time, obviously, for them to get adjusted. They got a whole lot of new players entering their system. But they're definitely a winner in free agency for me because as a team that I thought, I think a lot of people thought when they lose DeMarcus Cousins in that All-Star game, after that All-Star game, I mean, I'm thinking, this team's going to, continue to be horrible. But they really went out there. Yeah, they really went out there, and I feel like they made some solid moves, got some veteran players, got some really young guys, good mix, and they're looking pretty good, to be honest with you. Like, I feel more comfortable with Sacramento than I do with the Lakers at this point. That's just me, and I think that's probably a lot of people, to be honest, looking at this roster.
That's interesting, and I think that where Sacramento really shined this free agency and this offseason really, um, they showed their maturity in the draft. Now, if you look, Sacramento when the ping pong balls fell, they ended up with the sixth. I'm sorry, with the was it the fourth pick? Fourth, no, sixth pick, and the 10th pick, right?
Something along those lines. Let me
6 and
check
10,
it out real quick.
5 and 10, something like that. 5 and 10, 6
Something
and 10.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere along that lines. They got De'Aaron Fox, number 5, I believe. So they get De'Aaron Fox, and Fox reminds me a lot of John Wall, honestly.
I feel you.
Just the quickness, the way he gets down the court. He kind of has that alpha dog mentality, that some of the other top prospects are lacking. He's not as big as Wall, and I don't know if he has Wall's vision.
Yeah.
But
arguably, he could be as fast though.
He could be as fast,
which is saying a lot.
I was watching him in the summer league. I was watching him in the summer league, and he got down the court in 4 dribbles, coast to coast, 4 dribbles. So,
yeah, absolutely.
If that's you can never go wrong having a guy who can work like that in the fast break on your team.
Yeah.
That is
yeah.
literally the only thing Corey Brewer does is run in the fast break, and he's carved out a long NBA career for himself. So I think that was a good pick at 5. Then they turn around, they trade the 10th pick. I was a little skeptical in this at first because I'm so high on Malik Monk out of Kentucky that I really thought he would be
good in Sacramento.
Good anywhere, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. They have Buddy Hield. They already have their shooter, their off-ball shooter. Buddy's a better defender than Monk probably. So I like what they did. They packaged 10. They moved back in the draft, got 2 picks. They picked up Frank Mason, which is, a reigning National Player of the Year out of college. Great guy. Reminds me a lot of maybe like a Tyler Ulis type player over in Phoenix.
Frank Mason's got a lot of toughness in him. He's gonna be he could be a good player.
I think he's gonna carve out. I think he's gonna carve out a role for himself in this league.
I agree. I think he could too.
And also, probably my favorite pick by Sacramento, late in the draft, they take a swinger, 3 first-round picks. They're gonna take a swing. Harry Giles, I want in the late 20s.
Yeah.
People forget this. Harry Giles was a consensus number 1 prospect when he was in high school until he had some knee problems. He was freakishly athletic. A lot of his time in college, he was still recovering from an ACL tear. We know how long those can take and how devastating those can be. So I think that once they put him in an NBA environment, get him some NBA trainers, and he can start working with guys like Zach Randolph, Vince Carter, George Hill, guys that have been in the league, guys that know that what they're doing, how to take care of their bodies. He can make a difference. He's freakishly athletic. I think he can be a monster on the boards and a real force inside. I don't know about his jump shot, how far it stretches out, but if he can get himself, that Blake Griffin, Zach Randolph, Hassan Whiteside, 17-foot jumper, I think he can be a real threat.
Yeah. So that's one of my winners for Sacramento right there. That's my winner number 1. So I guess we're on the winner number 2 for you.
Sacramento, things looking up in Sacramento. Maybe they won't be a basketball hell as Rudy Gay described it.
Yeah.
Things are on the up and up. All right. So my winner number 2. Now, this one is it's a little unorthodox, but it's a little unorthodox because I don't think that they're gonna make a lot of noise in the playoffs.
Okay. Well, neither was Sacramento.
Neither is Sacramento, so that's okay. But I got the Charlotte Hornets.
Okay, I understand. I can see that.
I got the Charlotte Hornets as a winner in free agency. I like what they did. They had some of the contracts that they had were just horrible, to say the least. And they had Kimball Walker last year, and
Kimba, they had obviously Dwight Howard. Yeah,
Kimba is super underrated. The guy is an absolute animal.
Averaged 23 a game last year.
And it's such a, the point guard position is so stacked right now that Damian Lillard last year, who averaged 27 points a game, didn't make it to the All-Star game.
Yeah. The one position probably in the East that still is stacked is the point guard, where you have Isaiah Thomas, John Wall. I mean, I don't consider Kyle Lowry, obviously Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
And then Kemba Walker. So you got plenty of guys in the East who are going to compete for the best point guard, or the best point guard positions in the All-Star game. And in the league, the point guard positions seem stacked at the moment.
Yeah. So they bring in Dwight Howard.
Yep.
They dumped the Plumlee contract, if I'm not mistaken, which was an albatross. So they bring in Dwight Howard, dump the worst contract on their team, and then turn around and draft Malik Monk.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you something about Malik Monk. I was shocked that New York passed on Malik Monk at 8. I think that the Knicks are bad. They're going to continue to be bad. There is not really a hope for them to be good in the future. And so to have a guy like Monk on the board, Malik Monk is the best part of basketball to me, and that's the entertainment value. If you haven't seen his 47-point game against North Carolina, I encourage you to go watch it, because this podcast is called the Heat Check Podcast, and I don't know if there's a better heat check player in the draft than Malik Monk. He's a shooter. Not only is he a shooter, he's just a scorer. The guy just gets buckets. That's all he does. And he's going to put people in seats. He's going to sell tickets. And it just brings a smile to my face thinking about Malik Monk heat checks in the Garden, playing for the Knicks, all those fans. That being said, I understand why they wanted to go with a point guard. I don't know if they picked the right one. Obviously, Frank Ntilikina out of France. Dennis Smith Jr. was still on the board, who in any other draft is probably a top 3 pick.
Dallas probably got a steal out of Dennis Smith Jr., to be honest with you.
I really think they did. He looks great in Summer League, and you know what they say about Summer League, right? It's Summer League. But still, he's displayed a vision I don't think that we thought was there before. And obviously his freakish athleticism. But we'll get to the Knicks later. Back to Malik Monk. I really think that he's going to be one of the premier scorers in this league, and I think that Charlotte got an absolute steal with him.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on Dwight Howard with their move for Charlotte?
Dwight Howard.
That's probably the biggest free agency
right?
move that they made.
That's the big move, stealing Howard from Atlanta. Howard is underrated in today's game. I think a lot of people they talk about him. They talk down on him because he's not the player he once was. He's had the back injuries, the drama in LA and Houston. But he's still a double-double guy. I think he's still a 15 and 12 guy when he wants to be. He's played really well in the playoffs with Atlanta and Houston. He played really well in the playoffs in Houston. And, he's still a defensive force.
3-time Defensive Player of the Year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's a guy that can anchor an interior defense for the Hornets that was not the best last year.
Hibbert's not getting the job done anymore.
Yeah, Hibbert's stock has fallen into the negatives. I think it's just, and it makes me sad, but it's the truth.
It's just it's the truth. But yeah, it's still a double-double guy. I feel you on that. And Charlotte's an interesting one. Didn't think about that one for one of the winners. But I'm going to get into my winner number 2 right now. And that is a fairly obvious one, I think, with the Minnesota Timberwolves and what they've been able to do in free agency this past month in this free agency period. So just going a quick overview of what they've been able to accomplish in free agency. Obviously, the big boy trade on draft night was for Jimmy Butler out of Chicago. They ended up losing Zach LaVine, Chris Dunn, and the 7th overall pick, but ended up picking up Jimmy Butler for that. And I believe, was it just Jimmy Butler?
I think they got
in the 17th pick. It's
also
the pick.
Yeah, 16 or 17, something like that. And I think they got
Justin Patton. They got Justin Patton.
Yeah.
And obviously Jimmy Butler. So that was a big boy move for them. You know, he's a perennial superstar, or not superstar, perennial all-star player. You know, and adding him, look at what they did. By acquiring, you know, Taj Gibson from OKC, a guy who's a veteran player, a rebounding guy, really hard worker, you know, gets a lot of credit from a lot of people for being a good player on the boards, especially on the offensive boards as well. And then you go out and get my personal, one of my favorite players ever, and arguably the best sixth man in NBA history, and Jamal Crawford, and maybe one of the best offensive pieces that they could have acquired for this team. You know, coming off the bench, you know, Jamal Crawford could really offer a lot for this team, in my opinion. I mean, he can just really make things happen in a hurry. Not always going to be a guy that's going to get the ball moving, but he'll get some points on the board for you in a hurry. So I really think they've done a lot to upgrade this team. And obviously Jeff Teague as well. They get Jeff Teague, and I think that was a good move because, you know, Rubio, you know, very good at getting assists and getting the ball moving, but it really just wasn't working out. I think it was a good time for a change of scenery, in my opinion. So to get Jeff Teague, I don't know if it's going to work out, but he seems like a guy that I think can really make an impact for this organization pretty quickly. And, you know, with Thibodeau at the helm and Karl Anthony Towns rising up as, you know, a guy who's averaging 20 and 10 already, you know, last year. I mean, this team's really looking to do some damage in the West, even though it is, you know, obviously a tough conference. So that's my thoughts on Minnesota.
Not just 20 and 10 for Karl Anthony Towns. I think he went 20, 24 and 12, 26 and 12, something like that. Some insane numbers.
He was pretty incredible last year.
Minnesota was on my list, but I didn't feel right leaving Charlotte off. But you really can't go wrong with either one of them. I really, 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 really like everything that the Timberwolves did. Last year, they were so young. They had Wiggins, I think, coming into his third year.
LaVine was extremely young as well.
LaVine was young. Dunn is young. Karl Anthony Towns is young. Tyus Jones is young. All your core guys that really just didn't have that much experience, the guys that you're trying to build off of. And it showed. They lost a lot of games in the fourth quarter last year. They lost a lot of leads.
I think they lost the most. I think they actually, if I'm not mistaken, they actually blew the most leads ever in the fourth quarter last year for that season.
They just couldn't really figure out how to close games. And I think you go out, you get some veteran guys, like a lot like Sacramento did. You know, you're adding Taj Gibson, you're adding Jeff Teague, guys like that, guys that really know how to be professionals, know how to close the game out. They don't get antsy in the fourth quarter.
Playoff experience. This team, I feel you.
Yeah.
There's no playoff experience really with the Timberwolves until this point. Jamal Crawford. I mean, Clippers haven't been very far, but he's been there. Jimmy Butler, Bulls have made a couple runs. Taj Gibson, Bulls have made a couple runs. So they know what it's like to be in a playoff environment, and they can help this team out a lot. So, and those players they picked up, pretty important. And Teague as well. So.
Yeah, and adding a guy like Jimmy Butler, I think you can't go wrong for any team. Jimmy Butler is absolutely incredible.
One of the best two-way players in the league. One of the best two-way players in the league.
Right up there with Kawhi Leonard, I think, Paul George.
LeBron.
LeBron, back when he was, not lazy during the regular season. But just guys that really play on both ends. Jimmy Butler's, the way that he's improved from his first year until now, it's absolutely incredible. Going from 13th man on the bench, averaging 2 points a game, to now perennial all-star, a guy that is one of the most highly coveted.
I think he averaged 23 a game.
23 a game. He's clutch. He's not scared of the moment. He's tough. He really embodies that Thibodeau toughness and that desire and will to win that he's become so famous for. And of course his defense. What are you gonna say about his defense? I think that last year his defense wasn't as good as it's been in the past because he was such a focal point of the offense. But this year, I think he's going to be able to share the scoring load with Andrew Wiggins, who might be one of the top 15 scorers in the league, top 10 scorers in the league, just from a standpoint of he can get to the rim. He's got a mid-range game. His three-pointers improving every season. And then a guy like Towns, who's generational talent. I put Towns up there in the same breath as Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
You got Davis, Karl Anthony Towns for your big men. I think those two are the future of the position right there.
Very young guys that are great two-way players.
Yeah, you can slide Jokic in there. Towns' defense should improve. It should only get better. It wasn't the best, but it can get a lot better. He's got the length. It's just putting it all together, and that's what guys like Taj Gibson and Jimmy Butler will do for you. Those veteran guys, leaders, that can show you the ins and outs of the game, show you things you're missing on film, and just motivate you to be better. I think this is the year that Minnesota makes a playoff leap. I don't know how high, because right now in the West, I think your top four is pretty set at some combination of, or at Golden State at the top, and then some combination of San Antonio, Houston, and OKC after that. So I think those 5 through 8 spots are really in play. I could see
for grabs, so I can see them going to playoffs as well. Yeah.
I could see the Timberwolves grabbing a 5 seed. I can see the Clippers grabbing a seed, maybe like a 7th seed. If they run more Point Blake, Blake Griffin at the point forward spot. They got Danilo Gallinari, who's a great scorer in his own right. I don't think the Clippers are going to be as bad as people think this year. But I really do think that Minnesota is going to grab a playoff spot. And depending on the matchup, they could even maybe steal a first-round series if they get someone like, I don't know, Houston, if Houston goes cold. OKC,
it's a possibility.
San Antonio.
Yeah.
Especially because, I think Towns is built for that kind of playoff basketball. We've seen guys in the past, big guys, just dominate the playoffs. 2001 Shaq, Dirk in 2011.
I agree. It is possible.
Yeah. So I like that. That's a solid pick.
So that's where I got Minnesota as my number 2 or one of my winners. So I guess on to you for is it your final? Is this your final winner?
This is my last winner, number 3.
All right.
And I think you could probably guess it. I just got done writing a column about them. But for number 3, I got the Boston Celtics as my winners.
Yeah, I feel you.
I really like what they did. I thought they could have done more, and let me say why.
That's your first thought.
I thought they could have done more, and which is incredible.
A lot of people do. A lot of people do think they could have done.
I think they could have done more because I'm sitting here and there is absolutely no scenario in my mind whatsoever where the Boston Celtics could not come up with a better trade offer for Paul George than Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. With the wealth of picks that they've acquired, something had to go down behind closed doors for Kevin Pritchard in Indiana not to send Paul George to Boston. I don't know what it is. I'm sure it'll come out in a year or two. Something happened. Somebody said something that pissed somebody off, and the trade negotiations were off. But I really don't see it.
I agree. It is perplexing. I feel you on that. I agree.
That being said, Gordon Hayward, the marquee free agent of 2017, joining the Boston Celtics, the reigning number 1 seed in the East. They won 54 games last year. And I think they're only going to get better. I wrote about it in my piece. But Hayward is one of those guys. He's a 3-dimensional scorer. He can attack from everywhere on the court. He's a great 3-point shooter. Shot just a hair under 40% last year on several attempts a game. He has a great spot-up game. He's a great wide-open 3-point shooter. Fantastic from the mid-range, coming off of screens. A lot of what Quinn Snyder's offense had him doing, especially in his earlier days, was a lot of him running off of flex screens on the baseline, coming up near the elbow, for those little catch and shoot pull up jumpers. And then he can also attack the rim. He's gotten a lot better at that. I think he's really improved in that regard. Now, to clear some cap space, they had to give up Avery Bradley, which is a tough loss to swallow. Bradley is a phenomenal defender. He's coming into his own as a scorer. He was Isaiah Thomas's best friend on the team. He was one of those high motor guys. Probably one of the best on-ball defenders in the league, and certainly. I think Kyrie Irving even came out and said it himself that the person that guarded him the best in the entire league was Avery Bradley. That being said,
he did, yeah.
Marcus Smart is a fantastic defender in his own right. He can easily slide into that 2 spot where Avery Bradley was, and take over that role, and there won't be too much of a hit on the defensive end. Now, offensively, Smart is terrible, and he's a horrible shooter.
And Bradley didn't do too bad last year, to be honest. And in his defense, actually, definitely was more proficient offensively.
Yeah, he really came into his own as a scorer last year, I think. And Smart just doesn't bring that to the table. But when you add a guy like Hayward, Hayward lessens that offensive impact the offensive impact that Smart doesn't have. Hayward go ahead and makes up for that. And they also got Marcus Morris back in the trade. Marcus Morris is a guy that I think at first glance you don't really know what he brings to the Celtics, but once you look a little bit deeper into it, you can kind of see why they wanted to pick him up. He's one of those tweener guys. Doesn't really have a set position. He played a lot of minutes at the 3 for Detroit, but he also played a lot of minutes at the 4. And that's something that Brad Stevens values. He came out in interviews this year and he said that. He doesn't really think about positions anymore. Instead of a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, he's broken it down into 3 categories. You're either a playmaker, you're a wing, or you're a big. And so Morris kind of fits into that. He can be a wing, he can be a big, and his rebounding numbers, they weren't that great in Detroit, but you got to remember he was playing next to Andre Drummond, who's basically a rebound black hole. And pulls down anything within the same stratosphere as him. So that definitely hurt Morris's rebounding numbers. He averaged about 4.5 a game last year. Avery Bradley averaged about 6. I think with Morris playing next to a guy like Al Horford instead of Drummond, it's going to bump his rebound numbers up significantly, which should be a good help to Boston, because they were a terrible rebounding team last year. But now, ideally, Boston can now try out a lineup. Let me look at my notes here. But they can potentially try out a lineup. Isaiah Thomas at the 1, Gordon Hayward at the 2, Jason Tatum at the 3, Marcus Morris at the 4, and Al Horford at the 5. That gives you a super small lineup. Oh, shit. Did I hit the wrong button?
You said pause.
Okay. It's still recording. Dang it. Okay.
It's good.
All right, we're good. Here we go. So they can trot out a lineup of Isaiah Thomas at the 1, Gordon Hayward at the 2, Jason Tatum at the 3, Marcus Morris at the 4, and Al Horford at the 5. That gives them a super small ball lineup that also plays big, that can run against Cleveland. You have a couple guys on there to check LeBron. You have Morris and Hayward who can take turns defending him.
Jaylen Brown didn't do too bad of a job as a rookie last year.
Especially in the playoffs. I was really impressed with him in the playoffs. And he's got that alpha dog mentality that De'Aaron Fox has. I think he's going to get a lot more minutes this year. I think he's going to play some time at the 2, help take over for Marcus Smart's impact on the bench, and also slide down, maybe even play the 3 and 4 a little bit. I think Tatum is better suited to play the 4. He's a little bit bigger, has a more polished offensive game.
Not very wide, but he needs to. But he is tall enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of Tatum, I like that pick. I don't really see. Markelle Fultz would have been great on the Celtics, but they have Isaiah Thomas. They have Brooklyn's draft pick next year, It's another loaded draft, especially in the point guard position. And so they have a chance of picking up another rookie point guard next year that might not be as good as Fultz, but is still up there in the upper echelon of rookies. And they can let Isaiah walk. They don't have to max him. They can if they want, though. I don't know if I want to pay $40 million to a guy who's, over the 30 hump and relies on his athleticism to get to the basket. But, that's for Danny Ainge to decide. But Tatum reminds me a lot of Paul Pierce. Coming into the league, I think his game is more polished than Paul Pierce's was coming out of college. And he's only 19 or 20. He's already got 3 or 4 moves that instantly translate to the NBA level. He's got a great post game. His footwork is reminiscent of a young Carmelo when Carmelo came out of Syracuse. Just the precision and the speed of which he gets into his spots. He's got a tight handle. I don't really see him turning the ball over too much off the dribble. I just really like what the Celtics did.
I agree. I feel you.
I think they closed the gap between them and the Cavs.
I think it's only a matter of time. I think that at some point Cleveland will break down and Boston will probably dethrone them.
Yeah, I think Boston is waiting their time to take the top spot in the East. I think as is, this roster pushes Cleveland to 6 games, maybe 7 if LeBron just has an off series. But I don't think they win, and the reason I say that is because they lack a rebounding big man, which is tough. You got to be able to rebound in the playoffs, and that's just something that Boston couldn't do. They get eaten alive by Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love every time, which is incredibly ironic because Cleveland's best lineup against the rest of the league, which involves, Love and Thompson playing at the same time and just decimating the boards, is almost unplayable against Golden State. But that's a topic for another time. But if Boston wants to get to the finals, I think they need to start looking for a big man, and they need to start looking fast.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Boston. That's a good pick, though, for a winner. It's actually really hilarious. We did not coordinate this at all, but all 3 of our winners are different. I believe that for your 3, you had Boston, Charlotte, and who was the other one?
It was Boston,
Golden State.
Boston, Charlotte, and Golden State, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I had Sacramento, Minnesota, and now for my final one, as much as it pains me, I have a Sonics hat right over there, and I got the Seattle Seahawks gear on earlier. I picked the Oklahoma City Thunder as a winner, and as one of the bigger ones, I thought. I just thought it was hard to really just deny what they were able to do in free agency, again, as much as it pains me to say it. First of all, they get, obviously, one of the best two-way players in the league in Paul George. And there's just, when you get that type of player, for what Oklahoma City was still able to do without a great wing player like that last year, to still be able to make the playoffs and still compete, I just thought it did a lot for them to get Paul George. He provides another second consistently good scoring option that they really just didn't have with Oladipo last year. No matter how you slice it, he's just not going to add up to be a guy that can really, be that number 2 scorer at a really high level. So Paul George brings that to the table. You bring in Patrick Patterson from Toronto, which is an interesting play. I don't know if he's been kind of been an inconsistent player at the power forward position. And, ultimately they did end up losing Taj Gibson, which, it is what it is. You're going to lose some players when free agency comes around. So they do pick up Patrick Patterson, who really, had an off year in all honesty, only averaged 6.8 points a game and shot 40% from the field, so nothing too crazy there. But another thing that I think is pretty underrated with what Oklahoma City was able to do in free agency was not only get rid of Cameron Payne, which they did earlier in the year, which I thought was just brilliant on their behalf. Sam Presti's making some great moves over there. But
he got cut by the Bullets today.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's hilarious. But the Thunder also get Raymond Felton. I know he's nothing crazy, but as a guy off the bench, that's quality for Oklahoma City. They need a guy that can come off the bench. They had Norris Cole. He didn't know what he was doing out there. He had a little good stretch there with Oklahoma with the Heat. But I think they bring in Raymond Felton. I think that's solid. But I really like what they did with those 3 players. Getting Paul George, Patrick Patterson. I don't know how I feel about it thus far, but he's an option. And again, Ravenfeld not too bad as well. So I actually really like what they did, to be honest with you. Sam Presti, I thought he did just a solid job. Obviously, the tough part is losing Oladipo and Sabonis. Those are two kind of young players who are, have some potential definitely in the future.
Go ahead and dump that Oladipo contract.
But yeah, you dumped the Oladipo contract, and they're still in relatively good position at the moment, to still contend, and a lot of it's obviously in part due to what they were able to get with Paul George. So again, we'll see how it turns out. They did lose some pieces, but in all honesty, I think they did a half decent job what they were able to do. So that's why I thought they were a winner in free agency. Yeah, I just think whenever you get a guy like Paul George, Westbrook started to mature as a player. I think it's going to be tough for them. I know that it could potentially be very difficult for them to mesh those two guys, two incredible talents that arguably, it's going to be tough to just kind of combine those two players, especially when a lot of people argue that Durant was a better version of George and it wasn't able
to
really, it wasn't really able to materialize into a championship, effort, but I still think that with an experienced team, getting Paul George, they still have some decent options off the bench. I like Alex Abrinas as a shooter, and Felton as a backup point guard. So I think they have Robertson's a good defender. Cantor is a very solid scorer. They have some options. I don't know how it's going to all work out, but I kind of like what they did in free agency. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with you there on a couple points. The reason I didn't have Oklahoma City in my winners column is this a simple fact that it's scary for them right now. And even though I, as an OKC fan, I'm cautiously optimistic on one hand, but on the other hand, I'm scared out of my mind because Westbrook has yet to sign the Supermax extension that they offered him, which would be the biggest extension in NBA history. It scares me that he hasn't taken that yet. Now he could be doing it to get that 5th year option, get that 5th year added onto his deal with the player option, I think. But it also could be because he's always he's always expressed his love for Los Angeles. He grew up there, idolized Kobe growing up, and so did Paul George, and so now you run the risk of both Westbrook and Paul George leaving for OKC next year, or leaving for LA next year, excuse me. And if I'm an OKC fan, that scares me.
Yeah, I feel you. It makes sense on that. I understand that.
And after the whole Durant fiasco, there's no way that Westbrook would ever get traded, even if he came out and publicly said that he was going to leave for LA in 2018. So potentially, you're looking at two guys walking away for absolutely nothing. Two superstars walking away for nothing. And what does that leave OKC with? They got Steven Adams, who is looking to continue to develop, turn into a nightly double-double type of guy, maybe even move into the top, maybe top 7 centers in the league. Defensively, he's been great. Offensively, he pairs really well with Westbrook. My hope is that he can start to, maybe find some touch outside the paint, maybe in the short corner, up at the elbows. But no, I like that. Patrick Patterson, I think, is a great deal. With Ibaka and Valanciunas and DeRozan and Lowry in Toronto, that's a lot of points to go around and not a lot of guys to share them with. And so his scoring numbers don't concern me all that much, especially because of the fact that he's a pretty solid defender. He's a lot in that Jay Crowder type of role, I think. Great team defender, good perimeter defender, solid guy on offense. Not good, not great, but not terrible. And that contract he's on is an absolute steal. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it's 3 years, $16 million.
I'm not positive on the details of Patrick Patterson signing with Oklahoma City, in all honesty. But regardless, for them to be able to get him, not too bad for losing Taj Gibson. I think he has potential to be a scorer, but I don't know how it'll work out for him in Oklahoma City.
For a guy, defense is so scarce nowadays.
3 years, $16.4 million.
Yeah, and to get a guy like that for $5.5 million a year, that's an absolute steal. And not only is it a steal, but it's a piece that they can use in future trades. Guys like him, guys like Jay Crowder, they're great guys for trades. because they're on such bargain contracts. They're good players. They're worth more than they're getting. And so you toss them in a trade to sweeten the pot for a guy like, I don't know, if you're Boston, DeMarcus Cousins. If you're Oklahoma, maybe getting a shooter. Tossing Patrick Patterson in there. And the other thing I like about their moves is, let's think about this for a second. They could trot out a lineup of Westbrook, Robertson, George, Patterson, Adams, right? 4 of those 5 guys are really, really good defenders. Westbrook is an average defender. He's got the athleticism. I don't think he has the basketball IQ on the defensive end, honestly. He leaves his man to double a lot. He doubles on ball side a lot, which you're not supposed to do. He gambles in the passing lanes. And I think a lot of that comes from just the amount of energy that he's spending on offense. I can't even imagine how much of a toll it takes to average a triple-double.
Yeah, well, on rebounds, they do let him get in off of misses, so, that helps him a little bit.
That helps him a little bit, and so they run in transition so much, and, I really think that he spends so much of his energy on offense that he just doesn't save any of it for defense. With Paul George there to handle some of the scoring load and some of the offensive load, I think that Westbrook's defense is going to improve this year, just by the nature of him having more energy, yes, but also because he's going to have such great defensive guys around him. We've seen in the past, if you surround a guy with fantastic defenders, it usually ups his level of play. Curry was not a good defender when he came into the league. He was average at best in the passing lanes and downright atrocious on the ball. But they bring in guys like Iguodala. They bring in guys like Draymond.
Obviously Draymond and Clay, yeah.
Clay,
guys, yeah.
Fantastic perimeter defenders. And, now Curry, he's not elite by any means. I would say he's above average. His MVP year, one of them, he led the league in steals. Now, obviously, there's more to defense than steals, but that just gives you a gist of how he's improved both in the passing lanes and on the ball. They used to hide him a lot. They would hide him on, the weaker person in the backcourt, but now more often you'll see him on guys like, you'll see him guard Westbrook sometimes. You'll see him guard John Wall, Kyrie. And sometimes he can hold his own. And so I think that's going to be the case with Westbrook. Surround a guy with good defenders, his defense is going to go up.
Yeah. So those are both our winners. I had Sacramento, Minnesota, Oklahoma City. You had Golden State, Charlotte, and Boston. So that is going to wrap up our winners section. Now we head on into the losers of NBA free agency, and I'm going to start off with you. So you go ahead. Get on into your first loser that you have, your first loser team for free agency of, this past free agency for the 2016-2017 offseason.
All right, so I was doing my notes at work before I got distracted. So I started out with my losers, so my notes should be better for the losers. The number 3 loser on my list is the New York Knicks.
Makes sense. I understand.
I
was definitely New York was definitely on my list when I first started looking at the teams that I was going to say, okay, these are my potential losers. Knicks were on there for sure.
And I look around at the bad teams in the league. Let's take a look at the bad teams in the league real quick. Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I look at Brooklyn and I see their plan, right? They're taking young players and picks in exchange for bad contracts. They say, they talk to Los Angeles. They say, yeah, we'll take Mozgov off your hands. We'll take Mozgov and his $64 million contract off your hands. You give us D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah.
We'll take a bad contract off your hands. How about a first round pick? Because they didn't have any. I see the plan. Get some picks, get some young talents, hopefully attract a free agent now and then, and get back into relevancy. Los Angeles, what do I see there? I see a lot of cap room in 2018 when a lot of guys become free agents. LeBron, George, Westbrook, guys like that. They drafted some young talent. Brandon Ingram, very good, going to be a fantastic scorer. Lonzo Ball, I think, he's going to do just fine in this NBA. As we're talking about this, he just dropped, 30 36, 11,
36,
and 8
11, yeah.
in the summer league. So that's promising. And then I look at New York, and I see a management that managed to alienate its best player in Carmelo Anthony. And believe me, Carmelo is still the best player on the Knicks, regardless what the media might say.
I don't know. Porzingis probably puts up a good fight.
Porzingis puts up a good fight, but I don't think he's there yet. I think he's a little raw, you know.
I agree. Yeah.
And he will be one day. He'll be better than Melo, but that day is not today. And then they managed to alienate their second best player in Porzingis and the hope of their franchise's future. They made him so mad that he skipped his exit interview and went to Latvia. And as far as I'm concerned, has yet to talk to the Knicks at all. So that worries me. And then this timeline is just ridiculous. 2013, 2014, the Knicks draft Tim Hardaway Jr. They develop him for 2 years. He walks to the Atlanta Hawks. Plays with the Hawks for 2 years, and now all of a sudden, he puts up 14 points a game, like 3 rebounds, 2 assists, I think. Nothing special, average role player numbers. And New York throws $71 million at him. It baffles me. This goes back to what... Think about it here. Tim Hardaway is a heat check guy, right? You know, he can get hot. He's athletic. He can have the highlight plays, the dunks, the chase down blocks, the step back threes. And he's got a good game, right? You know who reminds me a lot of Tim Hardaway? Matt, you there?
I didn't catch that last one. What did you say?
You know who reminds me a lot of Tim Hardaway?
Who?
Malik Monk, who was on the board at 8 and that the Knicks passed on. They could have had him for a rookie contract for 4 years. Instead, they're throwing $71 million at Tim Hardaway. I don't understand that. I took a look at the Knicks cap numbers here.
Mm-hmm.
$17 million to Tim Hardaway.
Mm-hmm.
$26 million to Carmelo.
Is that 1 year?
This is all this year. $11 million to Courtney Lee.
Mm-hmm.
$17.76 million to Joakim Noah this year.
Yeah.
That's horrible. That's $72 million this year to those 4 guys. 3 of them are average at best. You know, there's rumors of them trading Melo to the Rockets. Somebody has to take Ryan Anderson's contract, and Ryan Anderson is making $20 million this year. So that's another albatross contract for them. So it doesn't look like it's going to get a whole lot better.
Quite a predicament. I feel you on that.
They drafted Frank Ntilikina at 8. Dennis Smith Jr. was still on the board. I went ahead and watched some film on Ntilikina. He's good. He's long. He seems like he's got a decent shot. He's got okay vision. His handle's a little loose to me. I didn't really see much of him on the defensive end, but his handle is a little loose to me. And I just don't see the upside that Dennis Smith Jr. has. Dennis Smith Jr. reminds me a lot of Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose. Yeah. And Derrick Rose is the youngest MVP in the history of the game. I don't know why you would pass on it. But, you know, I look at this lineup that they're probably going to trot out this year. You know, Frank Ntilikina at the 1, Hardaway Jr. at the 2, Melo at the 3, Porzingis at the 4, and Hernangomez at the 5. And that's going to win you what? 35? 35 in the East? Maybe 30?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could win more than that, to be honest with you, but I don't even think Carmelo's going to stay. And I don't know how the coaching staff, it just seems a little bit mixed up in New York, but I definitely feel you on why they are one of your losers. That makes sense. Do you have anything else to add for New York?
Just the fact that, you know, they could have brought Rose back, and instead of drafting Ntilikina, they could have brought Rose back. They could have drafted Monk, kept Melo. You got Porzingis, Hernangomez. Rose, Monk, Melo, and Porzingis. It's not going to win a ton of games, but it's going to put people in the seats. You know, Luka Doncic next year at the point guard spot. Fantastic prospect. Better than Nidalinka, better than Dennis Smith Jr. Right up there with Fultz as far as like a point guard prospect goes.
Who are we talking about here?
Luka Doncic. He's a foreign point guard that I'm impressed by him. He's pretty good.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. So now I'm looking at 2018.
Okay.
They have Doncic at the 1, possibly. Malik Monk at the 2. That's when Melo's contract ends. That'll free up $27 million in cap space. That gives you room to re-sign Porzingis for the max, Hernangomez for a little less than the max, and still gives you enough money to play around with another max player to fill that small forward spot. And all of a sudden, Porzingis is 2 years developed. Hernangomez is 2 years developed. Monk will be coming into his own. He'll have a year of NBA bulk under his belt. That seems like a future to me. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Frank Nidalinka does not seem like a future to me. I'm sorry. As long as James Dolan is running the Knicks, David Griffin pulled his name out of the hat for the Knicks GM process because the Knicks didn't want to give him basketball control over basketball decisions. Why do you even hire a GM if you're not going to give him control over basketball decisions? It just baffles me. And I
agree, yeah.
I just don't
I feel
see
it makes sense. I see you on the Knicks. I see you. That makes sense. And we're going to go for my first loser actually to a team that probably also has, big boy management issues. And that is the Chicago Bulls. And
Chicago was
pretty,
number...
it makes sense. I think this one makes a lot of sense. It's a team that ends up losing their perennial all-star player, the face of the franchise, which apparently, according to Jimmy Butler, means absolutely nothing. And not that important, apparently, to be the face of a franchise anymore. And they wanted to go in a different direction. They decided to go for Lauri Markkanen in the draft. They ended up trading for Levine and, I believe, Chris Dunn from Minnesota. So we'll see how that really works out. That pans out for Chicago in the future. But it's you can't. It's just impossible to say that. That they're not a loser. When you lose Jimmy Butler, I feel like he's a guy that can almost attract and sort of recruit players to that team because he is that good of a player in the future. And now that you lose that piece, they're trying to. I feel like they're just sort of building off of something that really isn't there. Unfortunately for their sake, they did end up, according to you, cutting Cameron Payne. So that is a positive on their behalf. You have Dwayne Wade, who I don't even know. For me personally, I actually just recently wrote about this, but I thought Zach LaVine is a guy that can, because he's so young and because he's really kind of been on the rise as of late, if he can stay healthy, that is. I thought that Dwayne Wade could be a guy that could really kind of mentor him because, relatively similar body type, not quite as wide as Dwayne Wade. I think that's probably why he could arguably be a better mentor for LaVine than Wade was for Butler. More similar play style. LaVine can attack the basket. Obviously, he can hit some jumpers, but because he's so athletic, if Wade could ever teach him kind of how to harness that power and athleticism he has, he could really be good, even though, I don't know if he's considered a point guard or not. He seems more of a slasher to me, but, they have some upside, but really, when you lose Butler, obviously they're also probably going to lose Rondo, which, you could argue is not that big of a deal, but when they're really they don't really have a point guard right now. If you look at their roster, they don't really have a guy that's going to step in and just be that point guard. I don't know, maybe LaVine is that guy for them, but they don't really have a lot of, hope there, I feel like. So that's also a tough loss, but, again, his contract, so, I understand it. Taj Gibson is a tough one. They lost him a while back, so, I just, when you lose Jimmy Butler, that's just such a big loss to me personally. I just feel like, a lot of Bulls fans really liked him. And I don't know if they're really going to benefit from losing him. Sometimes you could argue that the young talent eventually over time will help you out, and that's really what they got to bank on at this point. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. Obviously, Denzel Valentine's also a guy on the rise, Bobby Portis, so they have a lot of young talent out there. But I think Butler still could have been a guy that he was still in his prime and still could have helped this team out a lot. But in the East is weak enough for them to still do damage in a couple of years. So I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally, but They did get Levine done and Markkinen out of it, so I guess that's really what they wanted. What are your thoughts on Chicago's situation as a loser in NBA free agency, or do you not think they're a loser?
Chicago was on my loser list, so we finally matched up on this one. I looked at their roster. I looked at what they got for Butler, and Jesus Christ, I'm looking at this lineup, and I don't see how this team wins 40 games in the East. I really don't.
I gotta agree, to be honest.
Just these players next year are going to be getting significant minutes for the Bulls. All right, these players: Chris Dunn, Michael Carter-Williams, Cristiano Felicio, Bobby Portis, Denzel Valentine.
Well, I don't know about Michael Carter-Williams. I actually think Michael Carter-Williams could be on his way out.
Is he on his way out?
I think he could be. I think he might be on his way out. I think he actually might have already signed somebody else.
Did he? I must have missed that.
Let me check it out real quick. I thought he signed a contract with somebody as of late. Let me see. I thought he signed. It looked like he signed with the Hornets. Yeah.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, signed with the Hornets. So no Michael Carter-Williams.
Okay, that's good.
In Chicago.
That's good. He's awful. But so I'm looking at this here. So I'm guessing. So Levine will probably start at the 1. He started at the 1 the latter half or the beginning of the season for the Timberwolves. Did good. He's putting up about 20 points a game. He's shooting 40% from the line from beyond the arc. Wade at the 2. Him and his $23 million paycheck sitting at the shooting guard. Yeah. I'm guessing Mirotic is going to slide in at the 3.
Hear me out on this real quick. Wait. Hear me out on this real quick. Why is Levine not at? Why don't you think he's a 2? Is he really a 1?
You know,
he seems more like a me. I don't know if he's really a facilitator. Like if I was Chicago, like tell me this: if Chicago had like a Rubio or whatever, a point guard that could facilitate or something, don't you think that the smart move would be to eventually move Levine at the 2 once Wade retires, or no?
Yeah, I would.
He's such a pretty good scorer.
He's a pretty good scorer. I think the reason that Thibodeau had him running a point guard in Minnesota is that he's not really an off-ball guy. Yeah, he's a good shooter, but I think, like you said, he's more of a slasher. He needs the ball in his hands to be effective. And so having him bringing the ball up the court like that, it gives him the opportunity to use his athleticism in the half court instead of just having him come off of screens and whatnot. So I think, and like you said, they don't really have a true point guard on the roster right now. They have Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn did not impress me at all last year. And so I would rather play Levine at the 1 than Chris Dunn and have Levine come off the bench. And I think that he can grow into a facilitator, but in today's game we're seeing a lot more of scoring point guards, and I think it really started with Rose, ironically, back in Chicago. I never thought that he was a particularly gifted passer. Obviously he had a high IQ. Obviously if you win MVP, you're going to be able to pass the ball at least somewhat good. But he never really struck me as a facilitator. I thought that most of his facilitation came from his scoring ability because the defense would collapse on him in the paint and he would kick out.
Which, in my opinion, is what I think a lot applies to LeBron as well. But
a lot of people, using that athleticism.
But because he's so hyped in a lot of ways, I feel that maybe some people give him a little bit too much credit for his passing ability. But I understand what you mean about Derrick Rose.
Yeah. And I think Levine kind of fits that mold too, of like a guy that slashes, gets to the basket, and he makes things happen for others just by the fact that he's such a gifted guy in the lane. Hands down, I think the best dunker in the league. Power, finesse,
I think
all of it.
Aaron Gordon might have something to say about that, but I feel you.
I think Aaron Gordon could say something about his 2 L's in the dunk contest, but that's just me. But I see Wade, Mirotic at the 3, Markkinen at the 4, and Robin Lopez at the 5, I believe.
It's funny? Yeah. Wait, keep going.
I just don't see the talent there. Levine, yes. Wade is getting to the point where he's washed up. I think he's gonna take a minimum and go play for a contender next year. Miritic,
really,
he is. I really do. Dwayne Wade is making $23 million this year, and I think that's about $20 million too much, just for what he's gonna give you.
Yeah.
He's a guy, and I know that
you don't even need to explain it. I understand.
I know that the viewers can't see this right now, but they're literally 3 feet to my right. There's a Dwayne Wade poster hanging up on the wall. I love Dwayne Wade, I really do, but 23 million is too much for him in today's game. He's not a good shooter. He's not a good passer. He doesn't play defense. Like I said, he brings that veteran presence and that playoff experience and his ability to get buckets from the mid range and in the post when it matters. And I think he'd be a great fit. Cleveland, obviously, maybe Houston. One of the contenders, someone that can have a shot at knocking off Golden State in a few years. But I just don't see them.
Before we move on to the next loser, I think Robin Lopez might be the Bulls' best player, and he's actually kind of an underrated player.
He might be. Robin Lopez might be the best player on the Bulls. LaVine,
not even Joe Brown.
LaVine might have a case for him there, just by the fact that he's so young and has so much potential. But from a point right now, who's going to impact your team more? Robin Lopez might be the best player on the Bulls, and that says all you need to know about the Bulls being a loser in free agency. But
I do think Lopez actually is underrated.
He is underrated, I think, but you're not going anywhere with him as your number one guy. You'll go somewhere with. You'll go somewhere with Butler as your number one guy, but they let him walk for pocket change. They lost Rondo, and people forget the Bulls were up 2-0 on the Celtics in the first round with Rondo before he went out with a hand injury, and the whole series changed. So I think Rondo's impact on this team will be missed. I think he would have been, like you said, LaVine isn't really thought of that much as a facilitator, and who better to help with that than Rondo? So I kind of wish they could have brought him back, but I understand why they didn't. But
so that's the Bulls. I think that's probably that's my first loser.
And that was my second loser as well. So we knocked out two birds with one stone right there.
All right, so you got anything else to add about Chicago? I'm trying to think if there's anything else because that was your other loser.
If Markkanen can get a jump shot, it helps, but
Markkanen is intriguing, man. In Arizona, I think that at times he definitely showed that he could be absolutely brilliant for any team in the NBA. But I think that we're so caught up in sort of guys coming one and done, just right out of college after 1 year. If they just show flashes, and I don't know if he was fully developed, so I think it could be a tough transition, to be honest, for him in the NBA. That's just my opinion on it. Maybe not. Maybe he proves everybody wrong and sort of it kind of goes Chris Stapps on guys and just sort of really shows up. But the pieces around him, I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's just kind of my thought process on it. But definitely some young talent with this team, but definitely a loser in free agency.
I'm just gonna say Malik Monk was still on the board when Chicago drafted, but hey, that's okay. That's okay.
They would have had 3 guys trying to score the basketball, LaVine, Wade, and him. But I feel you on that.
I love Malik Monk. Seriously, go. Yeah, people need to go watch his game against UNC. He has so much potential. So let's see here. Is it your turn or my turn?
It's me. It's me. All right. So for my second loser, this is actually a team that I actually kind of enjoyed watching a lot last year, to be honest with you. I was really impressed with what they did. They kind of didn't really come out of nowhere, but really fun team to watch. And it might not be maybe not everybody thinks that way, but I picked the Utah Jazz as a loser in free agency. And obviously, big point number one, Gordon Hayward no longer with the Utah Jazz, franchise player for them. I believe 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was with them for 7 years and decided to part ways, 6 or 7 years, somewhere along those lines, to Boston. And George Hill, Sacramento, he was a guy that played a lot of quality minutes for Utah. Pretty sure he was a starter last year. They also lose Shelvin Mack, who was a backup guard, nothing too crazy, but those were some of their losses in free agency. And the West is it's getting more and more high-powered. I think one team in the West that people aren't even really talking about that really have made some moves that we probably won't be able to get into as much because I don't think they'll probably be on your list as a loser. I'd be shocked if they were. It's the Denver Nuggets. They go out and get Paul Millsap. They got Jokic. They got some players, Gary Harris. They got some guys. They're better than Utah right now. Yeah, so they're a team that will definitely push past Utah, and they're not even being talked about that much. Minnesota definitely has a chance to surpass Utah. So I just think it's gonna be tough for them, and it might not even necessarily be their fault, but they go out and they sign Tabo, Cephalosha, and also Ricky Rubio, so that's what they're trying to do to rebound, and you just can't when you lose Gordon Hayward. So they're a loser in free agency, in my opinion. I think probably in a lot of people's opinions they are, but that's just my basic thoughts on Utah. What are yours?
Of course, losing Gordon Hayward hurts. They lost him to the Celtics, but I think an underrated aspect is, they got Rubio, yes, but George Hill walked. Now, when George Hill was healthy last year, the Utah Jazz played like a 60-win team. When him and Hayward were on the court together at the same time, they played like a 60-win team. And now you're taking away not only Hayward, but George too. George is a fantastic defender at the point guard position. He's a good off-ball shooter. He doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time to be effective like Rubio does. And, Rubio is... I don't see Rubio making that high of an impact in the playoffs because he just can't score.
He can't. And it's not like Utah has a guy. It's not like he can even give the ball.
And do they even have a go-to scorer
on a regular basis? Who do they have? Who's the number one man? Joe Johnson at age 35.
Rudy Gobert, who's
Joe Johnson, Rudy Gobert, who's talking trash to Gordon Hayward like Enes Kanter would to Durant. It's like. Diao is getting 35. Donovan Mitchell, is he going to be your number one man?
Donovan Mitchell looks good. He looks good in Summer League. He had 8 steals halfway through the third. But
he looks good in Summer League.
In Summer League, right? It is Summer League.
So. But I guess Rodney Hood, maybe he's their number one man. Who knows? Exum's trying to, maybe Exum is a better option. It's just tough to tell with Utah, right?
Rodney Hood impresses me. I think, if I'm not mistaken, either Quinn Snyder or the GM of the Jazz came out and said that going forward they think Rodney Hood can be their number one option offensively. I think he's ready for that. He
Wait! What'd you say? Can you repeat that?
Rodney Hood, I think, is going to be the number one option for Utah offensively, is what they came out and said. He's got pretty decent. He good, not great stats. I'm looking at him now. 12 points. 12 points a game last year, 40% from the field. I think that'll get better. His usage rate, 22.9%. I think that's going to go up. That might spell bad news for his efficiency, which at 40% is already pretty low. But, Rubio, the one thing that he does do is he runs an offense pretty well. During his time in Minnesota, they were always in the top half of the league offensively when he was healthy. Usually in the top 10, and that was, I think they'll be okay offensively with Rodney Hood as a number one guy. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. Rudy Gobert has no semblance of shot creation for himself.
And doesn't really have an offensive game, to be honest with you.
He's really a lob city type of center. And his defense and his impact is more on the defensive end, where it's among probably top 3 in the league. I think if you were to go defensive impact by player, you're gonna go Kawhi, Draymond, and then Rudy Gobert. At least that's my top 3. And I might even put
that was also the defensive player of the year's top 3.
Yeah, and I think I might even put Draymond 1A 1B with Kawhi, just because Draymond can bang in the post and Kawhi is more of a perimeter guy. I just don't see it for the Jazz right now, and it really sucks for a small market team like that. And,
that's just how it is, man. It's just how the NBA's really decided. That's just how it's gone. When you lose a guy like that, and that's why I guess Utah fans got to be so happy about what they had with John Stockton, Karl Malone, regardless of the fact that they weren't able to win a championship. You keep those guys for 15 plus years, and you're a contender. You don't win a title, but you're still a contender in that small market, and that's just they're just really struggling at the moment with what they got.
And I just I think it's a shame that because if you think about it, Utah lost Gordon Hayward because of the media. The media votes on the All NBA teams. They voted Draymond Green over him. I love Draymond. I'm probably his biggest fan. Do I think he deserved to be on an All NBA team over Gordon Hayward? No, I do not. Gordon Hayward carried his team to the playoffs as a first option. Draymond helped take his team to the playoffs as a fourth option. And to me, that's just too big of a gap to overcome. Because Gordon Hayward didn't make that All-NBA team, he wasn't eligible for that Supermax. And, when Boston's offering him the same amount of money, a weaker conference, a better chance to get to the finals, and possibly a better team, it should have been a no-brainer. I don't know why it took him as long as it did to decide. If it was me, I would have been to Boston in a heartbeat. But it's just it's a sad situation all around for Utah. They lose George Hill, who was one of their best players. They lose Gordon Hayward. They get Ricky Rubio, yes, but they don't really have any scorers on the team. And in a league where offense is trending up and pace is trending up, it's gonna be tough for them to crack the top 8 in the West, and I don't see them do it. So that's a good choice.
So we have pretty similar mindsets on Utah being a loser. So I think it's up to you now for your. Is this your final loser? This is your final.
Yeah, this is gonna be my final loser. And my final loser is the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Ooh.
I think that they.
The reigning losers.
The reigning second
final
place.
Losers.
The reigning final losers of the NBA. They got gentlemen swept by Golden State, losing in 5. Most of the games weren't particularly close. I think Kevin Durant ate LeBron James alive in that series, at least on the offensive end. LeBron got his, but he could not guard Kevin Durant. I don't think he's ever been able to guard Kevin Durant. And I don't know why Cleveland did not make a stronger play for Paul George.
I was a little bit surprised by that as well. I really thought that Cleveland would have made a move for a guy like that, a guy like Paul George or Butler, but it didn't really seem to materialize ever.
I really think that Kevin Love, I'm a big Kevin Love supporter. I think he gets a lot of slack on Cleveland, just like Chris Bosh did in Miami. But it's come down to the fact that you just can't play him against the Warriors. Game 5, he was minus 23. He was minus 23 for Game 5. The series clinching loss. Game they lost by 7 points, 9 points, something like that. You can't play him with Tristan Thompson. He's not a good defender. He doesn't really bring you anything on the defensive end. And offensively, he really didn't play all that well either. So I think that for the Cavs to go ahead and keep him, I don't like that idea. I think they should have packaged him with someone like Shumpert, Shumpert, Richard Jefferson,
a Carmelo or a Butler or a
Paul George
type player.
I mean, if all it takes is Sabonis and Oladipo and his horrible contract to get Paul George, I have a hard time believing that Cleveland couldn't put a better offer out there. Same with Boston, but
sometimes I wonder if, regardless of how bad sometimes we think Kevin Love is, sometimes I wonder if his value is a little bit underrated in Cleveland.
And I think it is. I think that if there was,
sometimes even if you go out and get rid of Kevin Love, I'm not so certain they're a better team with a Paul George. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, I know, but sometimes I think Kevin Love provides some really important games for Cleveland. At least that's kind of what I've kind of seen.
I actually agree with you there. I don't know if Cleveland with Paul George is a better team. I think that Cleveland with Paul George is a better matchup for Golden State, and that's what
I
matters.
agree. Yeah,
LeBron is going to get you to the finals. I think LeBron's going to get you to the finals regardless. You know, I don't think they really have to worry about Boston right now. Boston might take them to 6, but
although maybe their worst matchup for Boston if they get Paul George.
Yeah, but Tristan Thompson is still a beast on the boards.
But their power is too much at that point.
You know, and really LeBron just has a vendetta against the Celtics ever since 2009. So
that's honestly true. Yeah.
I don't see him losing. And I think right now you need to find a way to compete with Golden State, and Kevin Love just doesn't do that for you. Really, here's a list of the moves that the Cavs have made this offseason. James Jones no longer going to be with the team. He played about half a minute a game. Darren Williams was by far and away the worst.
He played that much?
Huh? He played that much. Darren Williams was by far and away probably the worst player in the finals this past season.
Dude, Darren Williams was so bad.
He was so bad. Wasn't he held scoreless in 4 out of 5 games?
Dude,
as a backup point guard playing like 20 minutes a game.
I don't want to disrespect Darren Williams too much, but I mean, dude, come on, Darren. You've been in the league for 12 years now, my man. You can't come off the bench and provide a little bit of production for a team that's reigning champions. It was
literally
bad,
nothing.
All right, we'll just move on past Darren. Keep on going.
Yeah, so James Jones is walking, Darren Williams walks, Derek Williams walks. And they flipped that into Jose Calderon, Jeff Green, and Cedi Osman. Jose Calderon...
Maybe Jeff Green will turn into something. Who knows? I mean, I don't know about Calderon. Could be a good shooter for them, to be honest. I don't know. He seems old in tech, though.
Calderon is old. I think he was a skeleton 2 years ago. Now he's just a ghost on defense. I don't think he could guard a gust of wind that blew through the stadium.
I was kind of shocked with the Korver move, to be honest with you.
$22 million for Korver for 3 years.
They seemed like. Well, they seemed like they were aggressive, like in trying to like retain him, like as if he was like a piece that they needed. Like I didn't really see that, but apparently they wanted him bad. I mean, I don't know. Can he improve? Like I don't know how
he can improve in the playoffs. You know,
I guess he could. I mean, he just seems like he's getting older. You would think that he would get worse as time goes on, but maybe he actually will just be able. Maybe they know something we don't, and he had some type of funk that he can get out of as a 3-point shooter.
You know, he is a fantastic regular season player, but in the playoffs, traditionally and consistently, Korver has been terrible. And we saw that in the finals. I think he shot 40% from the field, like 25% from 3, somewhere in the neighborhood of those numbers. Just awful numbers, almost unplayable, especially for his defense. And, they go out and commit $22 million for him for 3 years.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
You know why? You don't have a guarantee that LeBron is going to be back, and you're still going to commit to Kyle Korver. I just don't understand it, and I don't understand.
I can see why. What are you gonna say?
I don't know why. I don't know why they were so aggressive with Korver. I feel like there's better value for their money out there.
Yeah, I agree completely. I definitely see. I see why you have Cleveland as a loser, as your final loser. To be honest, I see you on that.
I mean, hell, look at it. Cephalosha just signed with the Jazz today. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
2 years, $10.5 million.
Yeah, I said that earlier. Yeah, Tavo and Rubio. Those guys are kind of trying to replace, some, Hayward. I don't know how that's going to work out, but the moves are interesting.
That's $2 million a year less than Kyle Korver. And, Cephalosha is an elite defender. He's a guy, you have enough offense. Cleveland had 116 offensive rating against Golden State in the finals. That would have been best in the league by a mile, I'm pretty sure. And they lost in 5 games and got eviscerated in 4 of those. The only game that they won, they shot an absurd number of free throws in the first quarter. Why not sign a guy like Cephalosha, a guy that is long enough to check Durant, give LeBron a break on the defensive end so he can save some more of himself for offense and carrying the offense? I just don't understand why they had to give so much money to Korver. I don't understand Jose Calderon. Cedi Osman, he's never played an NBA minute. I don't think he's going to have any impact against Golden State in the finals. Their second unit looks something like Calderon, Shumpert, Green, Richard Jefferson, and Osman. going up against a lineup of Sean Livingston, Nick Young, Iguodala, Caspian, West.
Yeah, and honestly, I was Cleveland. I'd probably play Channing Frye a little bit more often. I mean, I know the mismatch is kind of there defensively, but he seemed like a guy that's a better 3-point shooter than a lot of the players they had. And they just didn't play him at all. But I mean, yeah, I'm all for it. If they don't want to play him, he seems like he'd be a guy that was pretty effective. But that is what it is, I guess, with Cleveland.
And they're hamstringed, and one of the biggest reasons they're hamstringed by bad contracts that they made the past 2 years. They're paying Shumpert $10 million a year. This cracked me up. Here's what Cleveland is basically trying to give away Shumpert for free. They're saying, give us the worst player you got, take him off our hands. Not a single team in the league wants Shumpert on their team at $10 million. The Cavs can't even get rid of him, much less get someone back for him. Like I said, Kevin Love was negative 23 in Game 5, and Cleveland still hasn't done anything to address that issue. They didn't make a strong play for Paul George. They didn't make a strong play for Butler. They're going to be paying upwards of $200 million in the luxury tax. And now they don't even have a guarantee that LeBron is back. They don't have a GM. It's just a mess for Cleveland right now. I think they're going to make the finals again, but as far as I'm concerned, they have no shot at beating Golden State at all.
Yeah. I completely understand why Cleveland is losing free agency. Makes a whole bunch of sense to me, to be honest. I see you on that. But I'm going to move on to my final one, and unfortunately, this probably is a team that is probably not really a team that is going to end with a bang. I mean, this isn't really a high-profile team, but this was a team that I actually thought was a little bit under the radar, a little bit unorthodox, but I definitely thought they were a loser. And that is the Atlanta Hawks. And they end up losing Paul Millsap this offseason, Dwight Howard, Thabo Sefolosha, and a young Tim Hardaway. They did acquire Dwayne Dedmon, but I don't think he replaces all 4 of those players. So when we talk about Atlanta, the way that their roster has changed over the past 2 years is kind of incredible. Let's go back to the 2014-2015 season, where you have a starting lineup of Jeff Teague, Kyle Korver at the shooting guard, Damari Carroll, Paul Millsap, and Al Horford.
That's the year that they won
off the bench.
60 games.
They won 60
right?
games, lost 22, and were the first seed in the East, and ended up being swept, if I'm not mistaken, by Cleveland in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That was correct, right? They did get swept.
Yeah, they got swept.
In the Eastern Conference Finals, yeah. So, that whole roster's gone. All those players, Millsap, Korver, Carroll, Teague, Horford, all their starters for that team that won 60 games, they're all gone. Cephalosha's not even on the team anymore either. So they're on a completely new, page with this team where you're looking at a starting lineup that's probably going to be Dennis Schroeder at the 1, Marco Bellinelli at the 2, Kent Bazemore at the 3, maybe Ilyasova at the 4, and Miles Plumlee at the 5.
Dedmon at the. I think Dedmon at the 5.
Dedmon, yeah, my bad. Dedmon at the 5. Yeah, Dedmon at the 5, and then Taurean Prince coming off the bench. Maybe Tyler Dorsey if he's healthy. So I don't know if maybe they make the playoffs. I don't know, but it's just a really big change from what they were. I mean, they were consistently a top 5 seed in the East the past 4 or 5 years, and it's not going to be that way anymore. And it's kind of perplexing. I mean, Paul Millsap was disrespected by Atlanta. I mean, I don't even think Atlanta offered him anything.
They didn't offer him anything.
I mean, that is incredible to me. I mean, Millsap is a really good player in my opinion. I mean, that was a little bit odd to me, but clearly they're trying to go young and start fresh, and who knows if it'll work for them. The benefit for them is the fact that they are in the Eastern Conference, which is a conference of the unknown at the moment. We don't know who will be the next alpha dog post LeBron. So that's what I just feel like it was a loser. I don't think Hardaway. Maybe Hardaway. Did he have a massive contract in Atlanta? Was that probably why they wanted to get rid of him, or what happened there?
Hardaway
pay a bunch for him, I guess.
He was a restricted free agent. So
they just didn't feel like he was worth it for anything.
They didn't extend it. So the Knicks came out. The Knicks tried to pull a Brooklyn, I think, and throw a big contract at Hardaway, make Atlanta, bite the bullet, and sign him to a big $71 million deal. But Atlanta didn't play ball and was like, okay, you want to give him $71 million? go ahead, we'll let you, and kind of screw New York there. New York played themselves on that one, I think. I'm looking at that roster, and it's got to be one of the worst ones in the entire NBA. I don't see them making the playoffs. You know, Coach Bud is a great coach.
I gotta be honest. Yeah. Budenholzer, or Budenholzer, however you pronounce it, he's done solid for Atlanta, and I understand it though. I mean, you look at the age. Dwight Howard's getting, he's gonna be 32 next year. Millsap is gonna be 32. They get rid of Corver, who's gonna be 36. Cephalosha, 33. So they're looking to clean the house in terms of age, and that's just how they feel, I guess. And it makes sense, but they're not gonna be competing for 4 to 5 years for a title. I think that's probably fair to say. I mean, there's just the Eastern, even in the East. I mean, it's just I don't think it's gonna happen. They don't really have a guy that's gonna take them there. That's just my thoughts on it.
So many teams now, with Golden State doing what they're doing, Cleveland what they're doing. A lot of teams are realizing that there's no point in being stuck in the mindset is a lot different. I feel like right now the mindset of the league is title or bust, and I think only 4 teams have a realistic shot at the title. Houston, San Antonio, Golden State, and Cleveland. Maybe Boston. I don't think so though. And if you're not one of those 4 teams, then a lot of teams are go ahead and they're tanking in the draft, and they're giving away their players. They're gonna, try to get those young guys in the draft, those low lottery picks, and bide the time until Cleveland and Golden State break up, and it makes me sad. It leaves us with some pretty terrible rosters. Look at the Lakers. The Nets, the Knicks, Atlanta, Chicago, Philadelphia, Phoenix. Awful teams. And some of them have young guys. I like what Phoenix is doing. Josh Jackson, Devin Booker, Tyler Ulis. I like what LA has. And I think Atlanta has been on that treadmill too long, that middling 6th seed, 5th seed.
Yeah,
they're almost seed.
They seem like the Clippers of the East.
They seem like the Clippers of the East. I think all right. Ask me one word to describe the Atlanta Hawks, and only one word comes to mind. Mediocre.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
They're mediocre, and they haven't won a championship since like the 60s, the 30s.
It's been a minute.
It's been quite some time. They're just mediocre, and I think the fans are tired of that. I think Coach Bud is tired of that, and I think ownership is tired of that.
For their sake, they just need to stockpile picks or something. They need to get some young talent.
And I think and I honestly think that's why they let Millsap walk. Millsap is such a good player, but he's not going to get you that Eastern Conference final berth on his own.
At this point, they wanted to go young. I mean, he can only do so much for them.
Exactly.
He's a win now guy. And they don't have that. They know they don't have that roster to make him be that guy that can bring him to the next level. But
Millsap
in Denver looks solid.
Yeah, Millsap can get you to that 8th seed, that 7th seed
with the roster they have. Probably.
To the point where you made the playoffs. You're not a contender, and now you're out of the lottery. You're not going to get a good draft pick. You're not going to get a good guy. And what do you have to show for your season? 45 wins and a sweep by Cleveland. And nobody wants that.
It's an aging player that is on your payroll.
And nobody wants that. So I see why they let him go. It's sad to watch the Hawks kind of fall from where they were from just like 2 years ago. But that's the way the league is going right now. And
so that's those are my 3 losers. I had the Chicago Bulls, the Utah Jazz, the Atlanta Hawks, and I believe that you had the Cleveland Cavaliers as one of them.
Chicago Bulls.
You also had Chicago. Yeah, you also had Chicago.
And I had New York.
New York. So those were ours. We had 5. We had basically everything different actually on both ends, which is interesting. We didn't coordinate that at all. The only thing that was similar is we both had Chicago as losers, which is interesting.
Such a
but
crap
do you want to
shootout
go
in
into
Chicago.
anything else in the first Heat Check podcast? Do you want to go into dive into anything else?
Let's see. We're at an hour and 40 minutes right now.
All right.
So I think we got time for one question each. One random question. Past or present, anything about any player, any team, anything you want. Pick my brain.
Right. You seem like you want to get at it. So I mean, if you have anything on your mind, feel free to ask, and then I can bounce off of what you got in mind.
All right. My one question for you is: Derrick Rose a Hall of Famer right now?
No. Derrick Rose is not a Hall of Famer right now.
Youngest MVP ever. Only MVP not to be inducted into the Hall if he doesn't get in. Of course, we're projecting guys like Durant, Curry, Westbrook, LeBron are all going to get in the Hall of Fame, which they will.
Is that a fact? Every MVP ever has been inducted in the Hall of Fame?
Every MVP ever has been in the Hall of Fame.
Makes sense. I understand that.
Because, when you think about it, for a lot of these MVP guys, they may only have one or two MVPs, but they have 6 or 7 seasons of sustained excellence where they were MVP candidates. With Rose, it's one and done, and how much of that is his fault?
I cannot place Rose on the pedestal of the Hall of Fame players, the top of the top. I can't. 3 All-Star games. I mean, he had a phenomenal short run, but I think if you're gonna not put an MVP in the Hall of Fame, it's gonna be somebody who got it the quickest and had that success, that fast. And was over that fast as well. And he was really, an excellent player for obviously 3 years. That time frame, 2010 to 2012.
Yeah.
And won the MVP in 2011. But I can't put him. He's not an MVP to me. I don't think his numbers really support that. And again, the All-Star voting definitely has helped him too much as well. So at the moment, I don't even know. Can you make an argument for him being a Hall of Fame player at the moment? I mean, maybe at the end of his career, if he can somehow muster out a couple of really solid years as contributor to a team and maybe win some titles. I don't know. Maybe that would help him in. That's sort of a factor. Usually, if you win titles, that helps you out and people voting for you in the Hall of Fame or however it works out. But I don't see how he could be a Hall of Famer right now. That's just my opinion on it.
I like that answer. I'm gonna go ahead and agree with you. I've gotten in arguments with this before, with people about this before. I just don't see it. 3 years of being great.
I gotta be honest. I was surprised Tracy McGrady was a Hall of Famer.
I think T-Mac should have got in. I like T-Mac getting in. And that might be a double standard, but T-Mac was elite.
I don't know.
For, if you just look at his numbers from 2003 to about 2009.
I think he was elite for 4 years probably, but I don't know if he was elite for that much longer than that.
I say Rose was elite.
They thought it was sufficient. I mean, they thought it was sufficient to be in the Hall of Fame. 7-time All-Star player, 2-time All-NBA first-team player. The 2 scoring champions helps him as well. So
3-time.
He was elite.
That season he had what was it? 32 points a game.
Yeah, so he had some individual success in particular seasons that probably helped him out a lot. Probably the flashes that he showed, along with the fact that he was able to continue to provide a little bit of production later on with Houston, averaging 20 points a game in 4 separate seasons actually. That's probably why they gave him the nod. And yeah, you're right. He did average 32.1 points per game in 2002-2003 season with Orlando, regardless of how much he was able to actually help his team win. Which can't really fault him. I mean, they just were very good.
And I think if Rose had 2 more seasons, maybe not NBA MVP caliber seasons, but 2 more All-Star seasons, I think he gets in. I do. But right now, just looking at his accolades, the case can be made. Youngest MVP ever. I think he was 20. How old was he? He was 23 when he
22.
won? 22, something like that. Incredibly young.
Something around that, but yeah.
But I just don't see it.
I don't think you can. I think that's cut. I think that's sealed up. I don't think you can really legitimately make an argument for him being. I mean, you can make an argument, but I don't think it would be legitimate for him being a Hall of Fame player at the moment. I don't think it's possible.
Three seasons of 20 points a game or more. His assist numbers, good, not great. Averaged about 7.5.
Yeah, Hall of Fame level though. That's up there. I mean, you got to have some accolades to get in the Hall of Fame, and he just doesn't have them. So I'm gonna ask you my question now, and I gotta think long and not long, but I gotta think carefully about how or what individual player I want to discuss this with. I think I'm just going to go with the player on the top of my mind, which was what I originally had planned, which is do you think that? I guess I already know your answer on this one, which is the unfortunate part. But do you think that Carmelo Anthony is a Hall of Famer?
100% a lock. If he retired right now, he should go in on the first ballot.
What do you think quantifies a Hall of Famer? Is it just the pure All-Star appearances and the fact that he's been able to average 20 points per game for so many years in the career, in his career? I think maybe it's just because every year in his career he's averaged 20 points per game. That's probably your opinion why that's a lock.
I think Melo's a lock because now here this is a gripe I have with the NBA. The NFL has Canton, the NFL Hall of Fame. Baseball has its own Hall of Fame, right? The NBA doesn't have its own Hall of Fame. It's just the Basketball Hall of Fame. So that takes into account college,
Olympics.
NBA, Olympics, and internationals. Melo has 3 gold medals.
Gold medal, yeah.
He's the leading scorer for Team USA in history.
Oh, no. Well, is he? Oh, yeah.
Yep, he's the leading scorer for Team USA in Olympic history. He won a championship his freshman year at Syracuse in college. Now, Derrick Rose has a case based on his college accolades, except for the fact that he has no college accolades. Memphis' trip to the Final Four was stripped from him because of the SAT scandal. So according to
and he never accomplished anything with Team USA, right?
Nothing really notable. I think he has a gold medal, maybe 2, but he didn't play a vital part on any of them. And as far as the Basketball Hall of Fame is concerned, Derrick Rose never played at Memphis. So he has no accolades from there. But Melo won a title with Syracuse. Comes into the league, in my opinion, if it weren't for Kevin Durant, we would talk about Carmelo as the greatest scorer of our generation. His footwork, his ability to hit from anywhere, just the way that he gets.
I don't know. I think Kobe could fight for that.
Kobe could fight for that. I kind of put Melo and Kobe in different generations.
Okay.
I feel like Kobe, they overlap. There's a solid overlap.
Yeah, they do overlap.
But towards the
Kobe
end,
won all his titles basically before Carmelo entered the league.
He had his 3.
And he never really entered his prime until Kobe was out of it. So
Kobe's prime was Carmelo's prime was kind of right around the time of Kobe having all those injuries. So I kind of count them as different generations.
Okay, I see you on that. Yeah.
Just his footwork.
Actually, I understand. That question, I mean, you could debate it, but I understand why he's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, when you average 20 points a game every year for 15 years, or whatever long he's played, 10 All-Star, 10-time All-Star, scoring champion. I mean, you probably got to put him in, and then obviously the Olympics and the college accolades will. One last quick question: do you think that Allen Iverson was a better scorer than Kobe Bryant? Honestly, probably. I don't know. You go with what you thought. But it's interesting because Iverson did win 4 scoring titles when Kobe was, around the same age. So you have to consider that. I mean, definitely, but then you have to consider he played with Shaq, so the points were taken away from him a little bit. Iverson played with nobody. He's going to be the guy getting a lot of the points. So I think for me, I think I'd have to go with Kobe as much as I think Iverson is a good player and won those scoring titles and was obviously super efficient. But just he had a post game. Kobe had a post game. He had probably one of the best scoring seasons ever, averaging. I actually wrote about Kobe recently. He actually averaged 30 points, 35 points in a season, points per game. Mm-hmm. So I think it's hard to make the argument. But I was curious if you think you could make an argument for Iverson being a better scorer than Kobe.
I think you could make the argument because I'm looking on it now. Iverson actually had more seasons averaging 30 points a game than Kobe did. Kobe had 2 seasons where he averaged at least 30 points a game, I think, and Iverson has 3.
Iverson had 3.
Iverson had 3. He also led the league in steals 3 times, which I find interesting. Now, one of his scoring titles, 26.8 points a game.
Yeah,
that's a little weak. That's a little weak for a scoring title.
And Kobe had that in 2008, 2009, and had that in 2001, and he had a couple of those seasons. He had 4 of those seasons where he had at least that much.
For his career, Iverson averaged 26, call it 27 points a game, and Kobe had let's see here. Let me find this real quick. So for Kobe's career, you're looking at 25 points a game exactly, but you got to remember that Kobe had several seasons where he was hampered by injury, and his first year in the league he only averaged 7 points a game. Second year 15, third year 19, and then his last year in the league was 17. But if we're talking in their prime scorers, that's a real tough one. That's a real tough one for me.
Yeah. For me, it is tough. I got to be honest, but I think that is a tough one. But I think I got to go with Kobe just because I think he adds a dimension to his offensive game, which Iverson just can't. And as a ball handler, Iverson's obviously, among the best ever and is great in one-on-one situations, but Kobe might be the best one-on-one player ever. And that's probably Iverson's greatest, attribute is being able to beat guys one-on-one. So that's probably why I would give the nod to Kobe. But it is tough to compare because they just played in different situations. They had different teammates. But I feel like Kobe's a better scorer.
I'm going to cheat. Okay. My answer. Kobe is the more versatile scorer and better offensive player as far as putting the ball in the hoop. Iverson.
Okay.
That's my answer.
You can make an argument for both, to be honest. It's really tough to really, get in there and just really cut it and divide it and know a legitimate difference. But I can see what your reasoning is behind that. It's tough, though. I mean, those 2 guys are really great scorers.
That was a good
5
one.
Scoring titles combined, and that's pretty good. I mean, those guys are pretty dominant. But I think that's about it. I don't think you got anything else to add.
No, I think that's it. I think that'll wrap up the very first Heat Check podcast with Andrew and Matt. I think it went pretty good.
Episode 1.
Episode 1 in the books. 1 hour, 52 minutes, 53 minutes.
Yeah. The issue now really is just getting people to